Doing my best. I'll be watching chat through our session here too, and I want to just give you the heads up that I'm going to take you on a journey as we walk through this session, and there are PowerPoint slides. There's a lot of PowerPoint slides here. There are pictures. There's some video in here as well too. But if there's anything in particular that you're interested in, come off mute, drop it in chat because I can make this as incredibly interactive. It's a really small group this evening, and so we can make this session exactly as you'd like to make this session. So let's go ahead and get started. And for those of you who are joining me here just a little bit late, I just asked everybody to drop your name in the chat and where you're located. And super excited to be here. I know it's late for many of you, so thanks for joining over your dinner hour. Hopefully you have a nice cup of tea or a glass of wine of choice. But I just said I'm going to take you all on a journey through the hike, Mount Kilimanjaro, and jump in here if there are any particular questions that you're interested in or anything that you want to know about this hike. But I'm going to give it to you from my vantage point. And then I'm also going to share with you some things that I guess everybody asks me at all times. Is this really tough? Can I do it? Is there enough time to train? Talk to me about altitude. And I hopefully have all of that weaved in here. But if I've missed something for you, let's definitely make this as interactive as we possibly can. And I'm looking at chat right now too, and I love it. Yachin, thanks for jumping in here too. I appreciate it. I'm going to give you a little bit about even where this thing started for me as I jump in. First of all, Tracey Seward, super excited to be here. I spent, as many people do, a lot of time in corporate America. I was just in corporate America for over 2 decades, stepped out, and I'm doing some different things right now. As a matter of fact, here I am leading some tours right now, which is actually my passion. I am an adventurer by heart. I love to travel the world. I traveled the world for business, working in consulting. I laugh because I said I've dumped the pencil skirts and the high heel shoes for hiking boots because that's a lot of what I like to do. I like to be outdoors, and I love to do anything that challenges me. And being a part of this Green Adventures, tour leader aspect is incredibly exciting for me. Tara Short is the CEO of Green Adventures, and she's a great friend of mine. We've been doing lots of different things, I would say, since probably 2014, 15 together. We've got lots of mountains under our belt. We've got bike tours under our belt. Just some spontaneous, hey, do you want to go to Cuba today? That is the nature of me and what I like to do. But I'm super excited. This is a very special mountain for me, and I'm excited to go back. I'll tell you a little bit about my journey in 1 second, but just Green Adventures, for those of you who don't know this organization, it is a good friend of mine, Tara Short, who leads it. It's been in business since 2009, and it started, which is where I met Tara, it started in the realm of educational trips. So Tara was doing lots of educational tours for students, for schools, for teachers. And that's where I met Tara when I went on as a chaperone with my daughter on one of her tours. And that was actually to Trinidad and Tobago. So, but now she's actually in the world of, and this is where a lot of the trips are, women's adventures. There are definitely co-ed adventures that are out there as well. And there's new events, I feel like, being added every single year. She just got back from Patagonia. There's a new really cool trip that's to Greenland coming up again this year. The beta trip was last year. So the amount of locations that Green Adventures goes to around the world is continuing to grow. And it's fun for me to be a part of it and to continue to be inspired and frankly, inspire the locations that Tara does take her travelers. So for me, I've been to so many of these locations. This isn't even all of them, but a lot of them have been as a participant. So I've been on both sides of leading tours, and Peru, Kilimanjaro in Africa, I just got back from Alaska not that long ago as well. I've led some tours in Iceland, but I've been to so many of these as well as a participant, just traveling the world and doing all kinds of cool adventure as a participant. So I've got both sides of being a part of Green Adventures. For me, like moving into why this one is so cool and so special for me, this is me in the back of one of my first, second or so safaris that I had done. And every time I went there, I kept saying, oh my gosh, that mountain over there, I'm absolutely coming back and I'm going to take that mountain on someday. And this is exactly where it started in 2019, where Tara and I are together on this trip. And we both said, okay, let's do it and let's get this planned. And that is exactly where this started. This goes back a little bit more personal for me, even more so though. I had a very good friend and colleague where I used to work at Accenture, who had done a lot of work, volunteer work in Tanzania, in Africa. And every time she would come back from doing one of the projects and the programs that she was leading there, she just told me, you need to go to Africa. You need to spend some time there. And so we had this conversation for years. And then, the unfortunate came, and it is about this window of time as well. She got very sick and she passed away from leukemia at about 48, 49. And that is where I said, all right, YOLO, we only live once, and I'm going to go make this happen, and I'm going to make Deanne incredibly proud. So there is the beginning of this trip. And for me, I never get enough of this country. It's only a crazy dream until you do it. And frankly, I remember, all of these safaris and these different hikes that I had taken and said, I think I want to go do this one. But wow, I felt a little bit nervous and a little bit afraid. And there's altitude and there's this. And seriously, it is only a crazy dream until you do it. And this is absolutely doable. And I want to answer all of your questions today as well, too, as we talk about it, because it ultimately may be super, super exciting and on a bucket list, but there may be also questions and moments of apprehension that you have that we should talk about today. This is a snapshot, and you're going to see the numbers here in a second, but this is a snapshot. I think that when we did this is a 2023 picture. I think there were 11, 12 of us, maybe 11 hikers, but look at the team that's here. And that's why this picture is incredibly important for me to show you. We don't go at this alone. Granted, we've got a group of women that we're taking up the mountain, but we have this many local people that are with us, right? There were 51 porters. We had 3 cooks. We had 6 expert guides with us, 11 hikers, there it is, which was a total of 71 people. It was almost like a village. And it takes a village to get up that mountain in a very comfortable way. But ultimately, you'll see how much, hopefully through some of these photos, that we feel and act quite like a family as we move up this mountain. So what I'm going to go through here in the next, say, 40 minutes or so, and again, I can go off topic if we need to go off topic. I don't want you to feel like you can't jump in here and you can't ask questions. Do that. That's the most important way for us to get it all out and the things that are most important to you. But I want to talk a little bit about the geography, the route that we take, the trail itself, and you're going to see a lot of this in photo. Some preparation tips, because that definitely is something that everybody asks about. How do we get signed up is how I'll conclude all this as well, too. And then questions should come hopefully throughout the entire time. So first of all, let's jump in to geography. And you can see here, look at this, we're in short sleeves. And in some cases, there were a day or two that we probably or could have been in shorts if you so choose so. But it goes from, shorts to comfortable, weather to the very last day. And we'll walk through that where you are in, you're in the Arctic zone at that point. And so you're in, heavier down clothing, lots of layers, and you're dressed really warm. And then you're back down that same day back into what's almost as though a rainforest. So I think it's important to walk through that, and I'll take you through that in the next couple of minutes. So Tanzania, I'm sure you guys all know where Tanzania is at, but one of my favorite parts about Tanzania, and every time I go back and I spend at least a day. If I can spend more, it's amazing for me to do so in the Serengeti. I don't know that I've been to too many more places that are so true, pure, just open nature than in the Serengeti. But that is probably one of the most, popular places of Tanzania outside of Mount Kilimanjaro. But it's on the border there, as you can see, Mount Kilimanjaro of Kenya, and we're going to get into that in a second as well too. But you do see Kenya as you're hiking the mountain. Another interesting fact, I always forget this until I look at this map. There's something like 195 countries in the world, and 54 of those countries are in Africa, which I think to me is also crazy and interesting. Just a little known fact today. Better picture here of Mount Kilimanjaro. You can see where it's at. It's on the border of both Tanzania and Kenya. And as we're hiking this mountain, and I'll probably point it out in one of these pictures, I'll say, hey, there's Kenya. I may not, you may not say, oh gosh, I can see exactly where Kenya is, but you can see where Kenya is at the top of the mountain here too, which is actually quite cool. But you see here as we're on the border, how close it is to Kenya. Kilimanjaro, it's a large dormant stratovolcano. It has not erupted, no worries. I'm sure most of you know this in well over 300,000 years, but it is incredibly beautiful. And I don't know how many of you have actually flown over it as you've flown through Europe or maybe flown to Asia and seen it from an airplane. It is just an incredible, incredible sight. This is exactly what it looks like from an airplane. I wanted to show you this as well too, because again, there are three peaks that make up this mountain base here, and we'll talk a little bit more, which is what's more interesting about what our trek is, the Northern Hike. And so it essentially does starting, towards the bottom here, of the middle peak, but circles its way around as we walk through a couple of the lower level villages to get to the tallest peak here in Africa. The 9-day Northern Circuit, that is our route. And the reason that we chose this route is because it's actually the newest route of all of the routes in and of Kilimanjaro, but it also has the most success rate. I think the success rate is still something like 95 to 98%. That is outstanding. I don't know how many times I read another article and someone says it was so close, I might have made it to XYZ, but I didn't get all the way. And that typically is on one of the other routes that is at a much, much faster pace. And the reason we chose this one, again, not only success rate, but you have an ample amount of time to acclimate. This is always something that I feel like everybody talks about. It was probably one of my biggest fears as well. But you have enough time to acclimate that you just do it at an incredibly slow pace. And so again, showing you just a bit of this route, and if this makes sense to you, just this picture I think is an interesting one, because we start at the Lemosha route. And so the beginning, down here, you'll see the Lemosha route, but center of this picture here, we circle this mountain slowly as we move into the full Northern Circuit. The other beautiful part about the Northern Circuit, there are a number, I don't know what the number is now, I want to say 7, 8, 9 treks, hikes, routes that are doing Kilimanjaro. The Northern Circuit is the most private, I don't know if secluded is the right way to reference it, but it is incredibly there's a lot of solitude to it. And that is also why I love this route so very much. On the last day, and you'll see that here in a moment, we do meet up with many of the other circuits as we go to the summit. But this route is it just allows you to take in nature. It allows you to take it in at a pace that is just so incredibly, just very rewarding. I think you'll notice it in the photos as well, too. This is nothing like an Everest where you see, on that last day, everyone is just trekking up the mountain and there are so many people, right, that are on one route. This is quite peaceful, I would say, through the entire route. the the amount of climate zones that we go through, I think it's almost mind-blowing, frankly, as you're walking through it, but ultimately until you see it on this picture. And so I mentioned to you, right, we start off in what feels like rainforest because it is just on the outskirts of a rainforest that we enter into right towards the beginning. And I think the altitude number is around 4,500 feet where we start in Arusha, something to that effect. Then we just start moving through and rainforest, and you will see, monkeys swinging right from the trees, and you'll be likely in short sleeve shirts, maybe even in shorts if you like. And then you just continue as it just starts to almost dry up is what it feels like. And again, you'll see these pictures in a moment, but you get to a point where it almost feels like you're on the moon. It looks like you're on the moon. So to me, this is just incredibly rewarding as well. It makes me think of the drive that I take from Chicago to South Florida at least once a year, where it's in the middle of winter and it's snowing and it's icy. And by the time I get to South Florida, it's actually quite sunny. Very different terrain, but the experience that you receive just in this short window of time is pretty cool. So let's jump into the trail. I've got a video here, and give me the thumbs up if you can hear this video when I turn it on. You guys can hear it. The only reason I bring this in is because it is a song that you hear from day one until the end of the trail. And this is us just about to go get on the trail. We're starting to do the celebration. We're getting ourselves super excited. And I don't know if there's any more video in here to hear this song, but when it becomes even, you're tired, you're like, gosh, one more foot in front of the other. The guides, the porters, yourselves, you're still singing the songs. If you can't sing, they're singing right around you. By the way, it's not annoying. It doesn't get to a point where it's annoying, but it's so very motivating. And I listen to this again today, and it just brings back tremendous memories. All right, let's get through here. So still in rainforest, starting to come out of rainforest. And you can see it just starts to happen right before your eyes, that it's really walking through rainforest, and you feel the moisture on your face. Might be some drips from the trees because it's just so damp. And you're starting to then move into a much drier climate. And I feel like this was the day for the very first time that you see the mountain. So there's at least a couple of days, maybe a day and a half, 2 days, that you don't see the mountain. She's out there. You've driven to, your starting place to the park entrance. You've seen her in the background. But then when you actually see her, and I want to say it probably was day 2, it's incredibly majestic. This is a bit of what a campsite looks like, and we'll get into more of that here in a moment as well. And I'll show you a little bit about food. But we had enough time. I think one point I will give you here, we had enough time when we arrived each day because the days were so very slow. We might have hiked anywhere from 4 to 6 hours, the beginning of the hike, that you've got enough time to just rest. And that is very intentional. There were days when, the Energizer Bunny in me was like, gosh, I think we could go another hour or 2 hours. It's intentional that we stop, we rest, we relax, we chat, we do yoga. This is what this picture is. We were playing around and doing yoga, but you need to rest. And that's what they will tell you, is you need to rest. This is about acclimating your body to the altitude. So what's interesting here is you also forget, if you can tell by this picture, you forget what your altitude even is, other than you feel it in your body. And sometimes you don't feel it in your body because you've moved so slowly through each of these zones that when you look out at a campsite and say, wow, I'm above the clouds now. And you don't even really know or realize it until you step out, out of your campsite. So camping in the campsites were some of my favorite times, by the way. A little bit of scrambling. I wanted to show you these pictures. There's very, very little of this. And it's not difficult. And, you know, if we needed it, we were there to hold each other's hands and give each other a lift if we needed it. All right. I want to take, and I'm going to jump in. This is like a big moment here. I'm going to maybe take a pause in this for a second here, though, too, because where I want to go next is to talk about summit night. It feels like I might say that it's easy peasy, you know, and general hiking all the way up to summit night. And this is where the endurance and the strength really, really set in. And I'll take you through that evening here in a moment. But any questions so far? Are you just absorbing and want to keep going and then maybe pause after I get through summit night?
Okay, I have three questions
Casey,
based
go
off
for
what you
it.
said. Okay, first one is, can you talk about height aversion or exposure in general? Like, are there areas where there's kind of a steep drop off? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So that's it. That's an excellent question. By the way, I've done a lot of these hikes and I was ready for Casey, one that I had done just right before this in Peru, the Alsengate, where I think my trek path was 12 inches wide. That was it. And I was waiting on that for this. There wasn't any. It's so, you know, and I don't want to say, and I don't want to promise that there might not be a route that we've got to move around, or maybe there was, you know, a day that had to be changed. This is such a it's almost an easy hike the first few days. I'll talk about summit here in a minute, but again, if you're getting at like narrow pathways, a ridge right beside you that looks like, oh my gosh, right, it's I'm going to fall for miles. You don't feel that on this hike, which may seem strange and odd. Was that your question? Maybe is it heights, fear of
Yeah,
heights?
yeah, I did the cat's walk or cat spine in Iceland with the Green Adventures, and
Uh,
that was intense. So that I
yeah,
just kind of want to prepare myself for that. Okay, and
yeah,
then
it's a great one.
next question, you mentioned scrambling. Is there any gear required for any of the scrambles that we have?
There are none. There is no special gear. You're going to
Okay.
want your. I'm going to tell you something that works really well for me. Um, you want your trekking poles. Nobody, I wouldn't suggest anybody take this hike without your trekking poles. So as you get started through some of this, right, you're gonna want them. Then you're gonna want to hand them off. And this is a very little part of the trek that you're going to run into this. Then you're going to hand them off to somebody else while you get up a rock or two. Um, and we'll talk about things like this, what works really well. I feel like a great pair of boots, another absolute necessity, are going to get you through these rocks easy peasy.
I'll wait
No
for the
special
third
gear. Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to wait? You want to go for it?
No, no, because you'll probably talk about
Okay. Don't forget it. Anybody else before I keep going? And by the way, if we touch on something that's on your mind right now, or I tell you, oh, by the way, that's coming, whatever, if we get the most important things out today, that's going to make me super happy. And I'm going to make sure we talk about altitude. I'm going to talk about gear. I'm going to talk a little bit about the camp, you know, camping and what it's like. So stay tuned. Okay, I'm going to jump into Summit Eve because I got to tell you, for me, I didn't know, I did not do any research. One of the first times that I did this, I saw that mountain, I knew about it, but I did enough research to actually get my, you know, to do what I need to do and all of that. But Summit Eve is it is the trek. It is an interesting, exciting, adrenaline filled night, and I'm going to take you through it because I think it's an important one that I was not ready for, um, but it was the most special. Something I will never forget in my life, day of my life. So again, this is the night. Look at where we're hiking or where we're sleeping. Right, we are in the clouds. We start at something like we get up at 11 o'clock at night. I'm going to turn a video on here in a minute, but you start trekking around midnight. And I got to tell you, that night, like you've arrived at camp midday or so. You know you need to rest. There's so much excitement inside of you. It's very hard to get to sleep that night. But we will talk through all of that. It is important to sleep because you at 11 o'clock at night wake up, and at midnight you start, and you go up and you come down in a pretty extraordinary way. And I'll get into that. But this is about midnight.
Green Adventures. Okay, one team. One team. One team. One dream.
One team, one dream.
Let's make it. Let's make it.
And here we go. So where we started, this is where we're at from an altitude perspective. And I'm going to take you through a couple of pictures here in a moment as well, too. But the hut that we sleep at before we take off to the top of that mountain on Summit Night, we are already at 15,000 feet. And you see what we've got to get to, right? We've got to get up to, right, top peak, which will be at the 19,000 mark here in a moment. But it is a long hike up, and it is a slow hike up. And that is what I want to emphasize. It's long because it's also slow. We take our time, and you're going to see this in a video here in a moment as we get to the top. But we've got two stops that we take pictures at, and we hit Stella Point just at sunrise, as you'll see on this one. I mean, we were aiming to get up, I think, a little bit, further by sunrise, but this was just perfect. I want you to see this video here, how slow we're moving.
I want to sit down. Yeah. But a good success. Brother, but a good success. Slowly.
That's me right there. Slow. And you look at the terrain here as well, right? This is where I said it's like the moon. It's what we had done up until that point, because it is now daylight in that video that I just showed you, is you are walking through scree. And scree is, I don't know if anybody has done that before. I hadn't before the first time I did it. It is a lot like walking in, I would almost say river gravel or sand maybe as well too. That's why you've got to go slow. Number one, you're at high altitude. And this gravel is and can sometimes be, just tricky to just plow through. But this is where your strength, your endurance, gosh, your mind over matter, where everything that you've been working for, the last, 3 months at least getting ready, really sets itself in. So we were at the top, right? We were at Uhuru Peak, the top 19,000 feet at 8 a.m. So remember, we left roughly at about midnight, and we took that long to take that trek up through the dark. So we all have our headlamps on, and we're singing as much as we could possibly sing, and or if you couldn't even sing, you were just listening to everybody else sing to get yourself up that mountain. The other interesting thing I had no idea about the first time that I did it is the descent. You go up, but you come down to 12,000 feet in 7 hours. And some people say, and it really depends, some people say coming down is a whole lot easier because, again, it's also in scree. So you're almost, not me, but you were almost, if you wanted to, skiing down it, if you like. For me, I just took my time slowly and, just kind of did a bit of the side hiking all the way down. But it is scree by and large all the way back down again. But you are back down and you're in short sleeves shirts typically by 3 p.m. Which just kind of blows your mind, right? That you've gone up, you're in Arctic zone, and then you're back out again in the same day. But that is a long day. I feel like that was probably maybe between 12 and 15 hours or so that we were on this hike. Here we are. This is coming down, just so you can get a feel. It probably was me. And we're down. And this is dinner time already. So we are, still all smiling, all happy, dinner and celebration that evening. Through some, additional mud as we exited as well too. And, because we had to go back through at the end and as we were exiting, back through rainforest. And, again, one team, one dream. Okay. I had to just spend a little bit of time on Summit because again, I feel like that was one thing the first time I did this that I had no idea what Summit Night was. So before I jump into some of the other things, I want to get into a little bit of the preparation and how I'll be here to help you get ready, what you need to get ready, what camping looks like. But any more questions? Any other insights you want to hear before we jump into that?
I have one more.
Sure, Casey.
If nobody else does. So ice travel. So we're going up, the upper 3,000 feet look like there's potential ice, or I would imagine at some point, or is there just no glacier? I mean, you said glacier at some point. So
Yeah.
are we dealing with snow or ice at any point?
So it's a great question. And I want to tell you the times that I've done it, Casey, the ice and snow, well, the glacier's in a distance, and it was ironic. I remember the first time when the guide said to me that glacier was here, which actually looked like it was hundreds of miles away, and he said it, just 20 years ago. There is a little bit of snow. You would have seen it in the picture that I showed you off to my side, but we did not hit ice and snow until we got to the top. And it wasn't what I expected. And I've done a lot of this ice and snow hiking, and I've done, especially in Peru, where, I'm in blizzard weather, and there was none of this. We talked about having crampons. Do we need them? We used nothing like that. And for me, just to give you, a bit of a heads up of what I was wearing, I'm in that red North Face jacket is like an 700 or 800 down jacket. And then I had another jacket underneath it and a hat, whatever. And the only thing that I could not regulate and I couldn't get right, and I kept playing with it, was my hands. I was sweating underneath everything else. So very little snow. And this is also important in terms of the time of the year. If we were doing it right now, it'd be a different story. June, July, we did not face any snow. Good question, Casey.
How long did you train for this before you went on the trip?
Yeah, I feel like every single time I do one of these, I have a different answer. If I'm like, gosh, I trained hardly at all. But if I didn't on this one, I'll tell you what I did here in a second. Usually I've got a couple of hikes in before I go do something like this. The last time I did this one, I had just come off of another hike. I feel like I never train enough. The way that I want to say it to all of you is, and I'm starting right now. I'm back in, I'm biking regularly. Endurance is important. And I'll talk about what training is important. I would say you need to be training and to be ready for this 3 to 6 months ahead. Starting now, but I would not wait. I would no less than 3 months before the tour. It isn't like training for a marathon from my perspective as well. I don't know if anybody's done a marathon or not. That is a lot of training, but the more you train, just the better you are, the stronger you feel, the more endurance you have. For me, the reason I'm saying I always want more training for myself is my joints ache. My knees really ache. And I know that if I was even stronger in my quads, that my knees would hurt less. So I'll talk about training, Yetchen. It's a great one. Does that help?
Yeah, and I know because you're an avid hiker, mountain climber, but was there anybody in your group who's like very new to this?
Absolutely. And I think it's a great question, Yetchen, because there are all walks that take these tours, and they're every single one of these that I do and that I lead, there is at least, maybe I would say 1 to 2 that struggle. They struggle, on the tour with a number of different things. And it might be altitude. And I'm not talking about Kilimanjaro only. It might also be physical endurance. But I want to say this without going, on a record of saying you've got to train. Definitely. Anybody can do this mountain. That is my gut feeling. Anybody, but you definitely have to train. You definitely need to be biking or running or walking, Stairmaster, yoga. I'm already starting to steal my own thunder about what I would recommend here in a moment. But I have taken athletes and non-athletes up the mountain. Yechen.
That's good to hear. That means I have hope to do this.
I know you, and I know you could do this one.
Oh, maybe later you can share. I'm just curious about the before and after. I'm sure you had certain mindset before you went on this journey, and after you actually did it, the inspiration that you had.
I think I should do that, and I'll do it briefly now, and then I can definitely stay on longer and talk about anything with anybody. I just want to share, because the first time that I did this, and I think I actually maybe even said these words out on a Facebook post today too. I remember saying to myself, what am I doing, and what did I get myself into? And it was mind over matter. I started to say to myself, as I looked at it, I'm like, I'm so excited and I wanted this one so very bad, but I'm not ready. I didn't train enough. I didn't. Those are just the terrible voices in your head. I was 100% ready when I did this. And it teaches me a lesson every single time. I mean, frankly, in life, I think about it in life when I get, nervous and anxious about something. Wow, that seems hard. And can I go do that? And I don't mean just the physical hard. It's this mountain that I look back on. And there isn't anything after doing something like this that I feel like I would never say never to. Never. So it allowed me to see, I think, frankly, what I was capable of. So I'll pause there, but this was life-changing for me. Thank you for the question. Okay, so I want to take us down another journey here as well too. I want to go into, these are some of the things that people always ask us well too. Talk to me about altitude. I'm pretty nervous about that. And the altitude sickness and what needs, we've already talked about, preparation, and I use the other word prevention, but for those of you, like I had never, I think the first time I did this one, I had never done a high altitude hike. And so I had a lot of women who come on these trips and they're like, oh, I've done, I live in Colorado. I've done 14ers before, and they struggle. And so the thing that, I want to say is that altitude can affect you and the next person and the next person in a completely different way. And I've seen it on many of the different treks I've taken. I've seen it in Peru, and was a little bit surprised in Peru with some people who definitely fit and had lived at altitude that were challenged and struggling. And what I put here is what we tend to see, the altitude sickness, and I do use the word sickness because there are different levels of the sickness, right? Sickness can be onset with just headache, right? And nausea. And that does start in about 5,000 to 8,000 feet. And I think just to refresh your memory, on the trek and remember the route and how slow we started, right? We start at like 4,000 and sleep at 4,500, or so, in Arusha town the first day. And then we slowly hike. So you're sleeping and staying at this altitude. We hike high, we come back down a little bit to acclimate your body. This is the best way to acclimate. And I did not see, on the last tour, I did not see anyone with altitude sickness, anyone. And I'll talk to you about what I think some of that magic might have been here in a moment as well too. But I've also seen some troubles and some challenges. And again, headache, nausea, fatigue, difficulty sleeping, loss of appetite, but it can be extreme. You've seen this, and we have expert guides that are with us. We know the signs as well too, that if it becomes extreme, you come down. That is the prevention. You come down off the mountain. We get you down. We get you out of altitude. But I saw none of this on this last hike at all, just because of the way and how slow we went up this mountain. Preparation, and I'll move to the slide a little bit quickly here too, but preparation, you can take Diamox if that works for you. Diamox is a medication. I took it on this hike. I did not take it for some of the other ones. I had absolutely no issues. Most people took Diamox as well too, but it is a prescription medication that you can get from your doctor. They prescribe it to you, tell you how to take it, when to start, when to stop. I think it is a really, really, really good preventative medication. I'm also going to say two more things here. Definitely, you want to seek clearance from your doctor to make sure that, again, everything is good. Heart is good, healthy, everything is healthy. But when you think about preparation, I will say that I think some of the other magic here is endurance training. I really firmly believe that. And the more that you can do endurance training, and whether that is walking, whether that is cycling, if you're a runner, maybe you're a skier, right? The more of that, I feel like also there is more control of your breathing. And I don't want to say that's a blanket case, because again, I think everybody acts a little bit different. Or their bodies could perform a little bit different. And the other thing that you'll be blown away when we think about prevention, you've heard me talk about acclimation, is you will want to drink so much water. It's cool on some of the days and you feel like you're not that thirsty, but your body is telling you, and it is the best thing to do as you're hiking. And we say it to each other, sippy, sippy, don't forget, right, to take a drink of water, but you'll drink 3 to 4 liters of water, believe it or not, a day. And I would say, the other thing to share with you is we take our pulse oximeters and we test every single morning and evening. What does your blood oxygen level look like? So you always are aware, and we're always aware of how you're doing. So let me move on to fitness here, and I can maybe zip through a little bit of this as well too, and then I want to make sure we've got plenty of time to ask more questions. I started to talk about this already, right? 3 to 6 months. We're at the 6-month mark right about now to when this trip leaves. And if you can start 6 months ahead, if you're already doing some activity, amazing. If you're not, it's okay. It is absolutely okay. And one of the things that I've offered already to the individuals who signed up is to train together in whatever way you'd like to train together. For me, I do cycle. I love to cycle. I've got the Peloton. It's winter in Chicago, so I'm not getting outside, on the bike here, but I really like to stay active anyway. So that's my go-to from an endurance perspective. But I also, the other thing that to me is really, really helpful is if you can get in some yoga. And the yoga could be yoga from a breathwork standpoint. I do mention that here as well too. Again, controlling and managing your breath as you're hiking, but also for stretching and just getting yourself and your joints, more flexible and more open. And then strength training. It's really important to add in some strength training. So what did you hear me say a second ago? I'm committed this time to being much more of a strength trainer, because it takes the pressure off my knees. I have had my first knee replacement as a marathoner in my past, and there's still I have challenges. And so for me, the weight, the strength of your muscles definitely will take more off of the joints. And that is my commitment to myself as I trained for this round. So I think another, pro tip before I take a breath here and pause is, I always say this, and I was thinking about this morning, is I recommend signing up for something, like some type of an event. This is good for me. And you may be so self-motivated that you don't need it. But for me, self-motivation is, if I say, I'm going to, sign up for a a cycling ride, or I'm going to train with someone and we're going to have, X number of activities per month or whatever. Accountability to myself and others. I do so much better. And I think it actually, probably is good for others as well. If there's some type of an event you can sign up for, or a couple, I think that goes a long ways. So you'll see, I know I didn't touch on, I'm gonna add something, update something on this slide real time. The first thing I jumped over pretty quickly, baseline fitness, 6 to 8 hours a day. And I got to tell you, like you heard me say, like some of the days are not long. They may be 4 to 5 hours of a hike, and we're stopping along the way. We're stopping and we're getting snacks, and we're taking breaks. But that last day is a haul. And so again, the recommendation from us is, if you can do a 6 to 8 hour, I'm going to do an update here on the weight of your back though, because I want to talk about that in a minute. I would say 20 to 25 pounds. And the reason for that is, we have porters with us. And I talked to you about the number of porters that we have before. You can secure, an individual porter. And what does that mean? That means that individual is carrying anything and everything that you don't want to put on your back that day. And so for me, I'll tell you, my pack, if you maybe even noticed it earlier, is so limit light every single day, because all I carry on my back is my water, my sunscreen, maybe if I need an extra pair of mittens or whatever it is, until summit day, and my toilet paper, right, for going to the bathroom, that's all I have in my pack. And your porters are right there beside you where, I say, oh, it's gotten really cold and I need my extra jacket. They're right there beside you. So I'm going to reduce this pack because I think it's probably 20 to 25 pounds. Let me keep going a little bit, jump in though, folks, if you need to. I just wanted you to see, this is camp life to a degree here. We've got tents where you can have, you're going to be at a double tent, you'll have a partner, but you can also upgrade to a single tent. This is me, and I'm in, with my friend, Tara Short. She's not in the tent right now too, but there were plenty. I mean, we had 2 sleeping bags, 2 massive, 95-liter bags in there, and all kinds of stuff. And we were pretty darn comfortable in this tent. Water purification. I always get this question, is the water safe to drink? The water all the way up is boiled water. I still, though, took my SteriPen. That's a SteriPen that's in there. And I use my SteriPen on my water every day. You don't necessarily have to. The water is boiled. But just to be safe, I did my SteriPen every single time I drank water. And then, at our camping sites, this is also where we would fill our bladders for the next day. The bathroom, it's outdoors. Luckily, I mean, this is, it's private, it zips up. These are our campsites, right? So it zips up, but it is like a small little tiny porta potty that the porters and guides carry on their back and set this up for us along with our tents every single day. Every single day. I mentioned snacks. There's always snacks on the trails. The meals were outstanding and incredible. We definitely always have, vegan and vegetarians on the trail, as well as, of course, meat eaters. So we accommodate everybody's diet. I'm not a vegetarian, but I found the vegetarian meals so very good that I found myself a couple of days sneaking into their food because it was so good. And then this is the last picture here is our dining tent. So it's cozy, but it looks kind of like we're in a spaceship, but we're sitting around a table and dining together and before we head off for bed that evening. So let me take another pause. I know I'm watching our time. Any other questions so far? I was just going to touch on packing lists, but I just want to make sure you jump in if you have any questions. All right, let me get through it and then we'll pause some more. So the one amazing thing about Green Adventures, and for any of you who've taken a Green Adventures trip before, Casey, I think you said you have, the packing lists are to die for. They are step by step, tried and true. Just, minute by minute, the packing list that you need to take on this trip to be successful. And you will have a packing list from us. And I'm constantly looking at this packing list and saying, nope, not necessary, or this would have been really helpful, or this is optional, and you'll see it in an optional list. But they are incredibly, incredibly thorough. What's important, though, and this is the reason this picture is on here, is that we're limited. We can't take, on a tour like this, we need the essentials, but you can't take, hard, suitcases, that weigh 3,000 pounds, and you don't want to take 12 pair of, XYZ. You want to be as minimalist as you can, but you want to take the right stuff on this trip. So there is a weight limit. There always is a weight limit, but we will help you through that. And so, for those of you who've done, outdoor adventures before, this might seem, easy peasy and I get it and whatever, or it may be a bit intimidating. And that is the other thing that I will walk you through regardless, right? If it's intimidating, let's talk through it. I think the overarching thing that I would say here is layers. Layers are always important. I've already mentioned a couple of times, I think, right, that this is what I'll do this time is I'll take definitely a pair of shorts, maybe. But you never know. But in your backpack, right, then you can, pull on the pants, if it gets to be too cold in the same day, because it could get, temperatures could change in the same day. So layers are important. I don't remember wearing my rain jacket, but there will be days that it could rain and you want your rain jacket, for example. You just don't want to go unprepared for, in tours like this. And so, hiking boots are critical and important. You don't want to go in tennis shoes. I did not take gaiters. I will this time. I think the last couple of times I didn't. My pants were just so very dirty on that last day. But I think it's, again, headlamp, 90-liter duffel bag, trekking poles a must. But these are just things I wanted to high level share with you. There is an incredibly detailed packing list that we'll share with you as well. I'm at the end, which is good. So and I'm gonna tell you here, last slide is, where we're at on the sign up, what the cost is. And then I wanted to maybe, pause again for a little bit and let you ask questions. But the cost here of this tour, and everything is included except for the airfare to Tanzania, is $5,100. This is every night's accommodations. This is every meal. The packing list. This is me as your trainer and your guide. This is the 70 people that you're going to have, outside of you, the porters. But this is an all-inclusive trip at $5,100. I asked Tara today, what is the last day to sign up? And because we're coming down to it, and we're coming down, in my opinion, for two reasons. The last day to sign up will likely be in probably March 15th or so. We've got a discount at this trip cost through February 15th with a $200 deposit. And then you can pay that in installments, until the trip. But you need time to train. And I think that's the important piece here, is the time to train and to be together as a unit and a group. So for me, the sooner, you've thought about this and are ready to rock and roll, the better it is to get signed up. I think, I don't know why this made me think of it, probably the word group as well too. You've got me, from beginning to end. And in that, we also set up WhatsApp chats we'll do whatever, we need to be prepared. WhatsApp chat is great to communicate with the group, get to know each other, and I just got back from Peru with a group of I think 15 or so women. We had started chatting and communicating and working together, months before we got started. I'm packing this. What do you know about this? Da, 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 da. But also, I probably will set up a Strava group for those of you who use Strava. And if you don't, I can share more about that as well too, but where we can motivate and cheer each other on from a training perspective, and give each other tips and high fives and kudos. And it's not necessary at all, but it's just a matter of, if you want it and you need it, a bit of the accountability as well. I think that's it. I've not been looking at your faces the whole time. So I'm going to flip over and see, do I have any faces? Oh, it's just mine. But any other questions? And there is nothing that I won't talk about it as well. So Casey, you had a ton of good questions. I appreciate you bringing them up.
Thank you. It's based off of past experiences, whether they were good or kind of learning experiences. Yeah.
Did you do the Iceland? Was it the Lagavegr Trail?
I did. That was part of it. It was just, I think that's is it the one where it's like about 16 miles through Thorsmark?
It is. That's exactly.
Yeah, it was like 6 years ago. Yeah. So that was my first Green Adventures.
Yeah, I did that one just this last summer as well. I led that one July, I think it was. And I've done that one multiple times. The weather the first few days was horrible, so difficult. It made, Kilimanjaro was nothing like what it was in Iceland the first few days of this last one I did. So we had sunshine, just lots of beautiful weather in Tanzania. All right, I'm gonna go off recording. Stay here for a moment, people, if you wish, but